What is the weirdest reason you were called into your boss's office? Another employee who didn't speak the same language as anyone else who happened to be in the office that day had decided to take a nap on his desk. Boss wanted to ask my opinion on what he should do about it because he was flummoxed. I used to grab a chicken sandwich on my first break at work. Apparently, some new hire assumed I was going to lunch 2 hours into my shift. After I came back 15 minutes later, our standard break time, I got called in to ask why I felt I should be going to lunch. Told them I didn't and to check my time card. Back when I was an intern, a co-worker told me to give a pile of papers to my boss and to tell him that he is in butthole. He told me explicitly that I have to call him that way. I went to my boss's office, told him who sent him the papers, and then I told him, well, he also said that I should say something to you, which is really unplea. Is it that I am in butthole me? Well, yes, but him. It's okay. He's one too. It turned out that those two guys are basically BFFs and that they constantly do something like this. Hey, you closer 67. Could you come to the office? What's up? Someone wrote a review complaining about doing your job too well. ? I'm serious. Take a look. Review goes on to talk about how the reviewer's son and friends had attempted to see Deadpool. I had denied them entry, sold them tickets to a different movie, found them trying to sneak into Deadpool and consequently kicked them out of the theater and denied them a refund. Then, it talked about how I, and a second employee who was involved, should be fired and how good of an employee a third employee was who gave the kids their refunds. Are you serious right now? He gave them a refund, and now this person is complaining about me following policy while acknowledging exactly what was going on? Yep. Don't worry, I'm not gonna write you up or warn you or anything. Just wanted to tell you good job. Now, could you do me a favor and send in third employee who gave the refund? He was playing Factorio and forgot why he called me in, so he showed me his setup for 20 minutes. Those are by far the best bosses to have. 1. To pull me away from a customer who was yelling at me, who my manager knew was freaking crazy. He even pulled the whole SPWF in my office. Now down the hallway gag. The customer just gave me the smug haha look as I walked away. I was shaken up by it, but as soon as I walked in and closed the door, he apologized and told me that the customer who was just yelling at me had been banned from our business for causing crap with employees and other customers, and as soon as my manager saw them walk in, he called the cops and the cops were on their way. He then pulls up the cameras on his computer and says, "I'll be right back. Watch this," and he leaves his office. I watch the cameras and see him walk right up to the cops who just entered, take the cops to the customer, and have the cops escort the customer out of the building. He then turns to the camera and gives a big thumbs up. 2. To promote me to a supervisor job I didn't even apply for or was aware of. Sounds like an amazing boss, really trying to do the best for his employees. I'm sorry you had that crappy experience with the customer. I bet it felt really vindicating to watch them get arrested. In the early 2000s, my boss called me and so he could show me Wikipedia, which he had just discovered. He says, "Ask me anything and I'll find the answer." I asked how many tacos are sold per day in San Antonio. He was angry because that's obviously not a question that Wikipedia can answer. She had managed to get a large piece of glass lodged into her hand from a picture frame she attempted to catch when she knocked it over. I was working in a college with a nursing department, so I went and got some professors. You're lucky they were that kind of doctor. The new policy of not transporting wildlife in the work van had to be explained to me, because I was the reason the policy came into existence, and B, I was the only person on the site it would ever apply to. It was a sparrow that had flown into a window. I carried it back to the mailroom, found the box, and took it to a wildlife rehabber that night. The employee driving the van was very concerned about this tiny half-ounce bird getting loose in the van and attacking her. She would have loved that time I had a dazed and concussed muskrat wandering around my van while I drove. She wanted me to watch the Detective Pikachu trailer with her. I once had my boss yell angrily across the store, "You Andras are jealous." My office. Now, at this point, I had been working there for 6 months, had never had a major fuck up, and had no idea why my normally calm and collected boss would be so angry. I went in, fearing the worst. He wanted to show me his new ship in Kerbal Space Program. I had food poisoning and my boss thought I was just sitting in the bathroom to waste time. The discussion ended prematurely when I covered his desk in vomit. You're my hero. A co-worker accused me of stealing his lunch. Then he went to our boss and asked to be reassigned due to bullying in the workplace. No, I did not steal his freaking food. My boss knew this as well and laughed it off. Your boss stole his lunch. Because somebody kept trolling him and flipping his display upside down. Control-Alt-Up. Turns out a co-worker plugged in a keyboard with an unusually long cord and would frick with him every now and then. And this had gone on for months. The guy's solution was to literally flip the tube monitor, early 2000s, upside down with the stand sticking out like an antenna. Similar thing happened when offshore. Just before we finished the day shift we flipped the mechanic's computer display upside down. The night shift mechanic wasn't very computer savvy. He came in the next day to find the whole monitor flipped over with the stand in the air. We had a good chuckle. Had my boss call me in once because a parent accused me of hitting their child. Apparently the kid came home with a bruise. When they asked me what happened I explained the kid wasn't even in my room. They were in a class on the other side of the building and I didn't even see them the entire day. Turns out the kid had a hockey game that night before he came home. Guess where the bruise came from? Thankfully, once they had the facts they pretty much told the parent this never happened. You are mistaken and we are standing by our teacher. It was scary though cause you seldom get out of these types of accusations without at least a suspension as they look into it. I had a student tell their parents that I sat her in front of the class, looked at her head, and said that she had bugs in her hair and it was gross. Never happened. The parent called the AP. He asked me what happened. Essentially, I just said none of the above. Then he asked me to prove it. I had to explain to him that I couldn't prove what didn't happen. Used to make levels for Quake while taking tech support calls. One day, while modeling a level and doing an FFR, disk, format, reinstall, I notice a boss out of the corner of my eye. Frick it, I'm busted. I don't even try to hide what I'm doing. Mute the customer and ask if he needs anything. Put yourself in time when you get off this call. I'd like to see you in the pit. The pit was a corner of the call center where all the lead techs and bosses sat. My stomach lurches. Okay, I turn my attention back to the caller and finish up in about another 20 minutes. I love this job. I'm really bummed. I switch my status and start walking back to the pit. Except now there's 3 bosses right outside my cubicle. Can you do a level that's the floor plan of the call center, with the elevator and all? No crap. I was promoted a month later. That's really cool but for some reason the office plane level feels unsettling to me lol. She wanted me to decorate her office for the Halloween decorating contest since I wasn't worthy of having an office. I said frick that, and decorated the closet by my cube, and won. Yeah, I won a Starbucks gift card with $1.90 on it. Appears our HR lady bought a $5 gift card, used that to buy a drink, then sent it to me. I used to work IT in a school. My boss was a principal. I'm gay. This is actually sort of relevant to the story. One of the rules in the school is that principal and VP doors are to stay open at all times, unless they are having a meeting with parents. All the VP and P's doors were closed. This is super odd. There were 4 VPs and a principal, so having them all closed is basically unheard of. Even the administrative staff were freaking out a bit. Finally, I get buzzed into the principal's office. Of course everyone is looking at me like what did you do? I walk into the office and my boss, an older lady that I totally respect, finishes up her email, pushes her glasses on her face and says what do you know about Lady Gaga? As it turned out, they were all trying to one-up each other in the talent show and my boss wanted a gay opinion. I told her she needed to do Bad Romance and kept it from everyone. I was in college, and whenever we had to go on rounds of the apartments we had to submit a report of what had happened on our rounds. Most of the time nothing happened and there was nothing to write about. However, I got tired of writing a paragraph or 2 of started rounds, saw no one finished rounds, so I started making my reports have themes. I wrote them up like my rounds were important plot points in cowboy, Star Wars, or horror movies, and usually included background music to listen to while reading them. At the end of the semester, I ended by submitting a report written in rhyme to the night before Christmas, and he called me in to tell me that he was going to fire me, foregoing probation or any other disciplinary action first, until the dean of students saw the poem and loved it. God forbid a college rar has fun with their job. Good on you, mate. Said good morning after grabbing a water bottle near his office door and got a delayed, mumbled response. A few minutes later I get a come see me, please email. I walk in and he asks if he had been snoring and asks for water. I grab him a bottle and he takes a pill, then hands me his keys, which have a market card on them, and asks me to get him a Coke. He is diabetic and a kidney transplant recipient. He had passed out and needed sugar ASAP. As a diabetic, you're a hero. To do the missing no trick so he could get a crapload of rare candies and master balls. This was right after Pokemon Red and Blue were re-released for the 3DS. Everyone at our shop was playing it, but I was the only one that remembered how to get the trick to work. My boss also called me through our store's phone network a few times just to ask me which types certain Pokemon were weak to. I was asked to help fix the inflatable shark he had hanging from the ceiling. He found the script for Monty Python online and called me into his office to act out the parts. I wanna be the coconuts. Got called into my old boss's office to ask if I noticed how bad one of my co-workers smelled. 2. Turns out customers were complaining and he asked me if it was true. It was. Later, the same co-worker disappeared and cops showed up saying he might have been involved in kidnapping a girl. Crime smells. Because a girl I'd been on 3 dates with asked me to go to court with her to testify that she'd had custody of her daughter consistently. She hadn't. She'd dropped the kid off at grandma's while she worked on being a party planner. I said no, and she contacted my HR department to accuse me of sexual harassment. Thankfully, for me, she'd previously worked for the company. They knew she was a freaking loon, so they just called me in to get my side of the story before warning me away from her. If I hadn't already made a determination to separate, they were the deciding vote. See, that's what's stupid. Had the company had no idea of her track record, things might go south for you. To ask if I was freaking one of the servers. He heard some gossip that I was cheating on my GF and wanted to see if it was true. It wasn't, but oh boy did that cause a lot of problems. Or because, much later, at a different place, because someone thought I was aggressive and wanted to fight, I raised my voice at him because he was about to use something of mine covered in raw chicken to help a customer. Like, why do you not know how bad that is without me snapping at you? Took me a moment to understand you don't mean a web server, because that would be even weirder. I was asked if I was sure I couldn't work the hours between 8 AM and 4 PM. I said no, because I was a student. I was also fired. LOL. Had a similar situation where I was delivering pizzas while studying full time. The boss really tried to pressure me to drop my classes so I could work more. I told him in no uncertain terms that if I was stupid enough to give up school, I deserved a full-time job managing teenagers in a pizza place with no future prospects. 100% true story. The first company I worked for went through a massive financial crisis that resulted in half the company being laid off over a 3-month span. Anyway, one day they tell us our team of 16 was being cut again to 10. They called a company meeting to tell us that the layoffs were happening that day. So they tell us to go back to our offices and wait. The first person they call into the office was me. I had just been promoted to a junior developer after 2 years of interning for them during college. They call me in, looking all sad, tell me to sit, and tell me we aren't laying you off. You can go back. I couldn't believe it. I still can't today. Weirdest layoff I've ever seen. It's possible. They needed to set a precedent that people getting called to the office was not a layoff. You going back to your desk after that meeting made others feel a little safer getting called in and not freak out, do something damaging. You were the bait for the others. I took too many lengthy dumps throughout the day. True story. I had similar situation. I had to be to work at 7 AM. Unfortunately, that's when my body wanted to evacuate. My boss asked why I clocked in and went to the bathroom. I told him it was either that or I'd be late, and he already called me in for that. This was my solution. He kinda laughed it off and that was the end of it. My project lead called me into his office and explained to me that the client manager had complained that the mug I used for tea was too big. Someone has never seen a Sports Direct mug. Both my husband and I have stories. Husband was called into the boss office to help a co-worker set up stacks of cardboard boxes with accessories to resemble the boss and his wife having a tea party. Co-worker wanted to startle the boss upon his return from a business trip. I was called into the office by the store manager and assistant store manager. They wanted to ask me, as the gay manager, if the new transfer from out of state was gay. I had only met her 5 minutes before. After I stopped laughing, I said yeah, and she's going to transfer in 6 months to another store, in Florida probably, because of a girl. It was 5.5 months, but I was right. Lesbians is the same. I was driving a work truck with the boss name and phone number on the side, going down a rural road. Some deer were standing alongside. I beeped the horn a whole bunch of times to scare them away from the road and then drove past this large bush and group of trees. There was a house right there which was previously hidden by the vegetation. If I could have seen the house, I probably wouldn't have done all that honking. Anyway, I forgot about this and went to the customer's house, completed the job and drove back to the shop. The boss called me in. Mr. Watch's name called and I kinda know him but not really. I've done some work for him in the past. He wanted to know if I sent you out to his place to blow the horn outside. Huh, well did you drive down such and such a road? UHH. Yeah, I figured it would get me down towards the lake. Did you drive by and beep the horn a bunch of times outside some guy's house? Because he called and says you did. I told him I couldn't figure out why you'd do that, but by the same token, he has no reason to lie. I believe it happened. Why would you do something like that? Oh, to scare the deer back into the woods. That makes sense of the whole thing. What's his phone number? I'll call him and explain. No, it's nothing like that. He didn't seem too upset, just confused. I told him that I knew the guy who was driving the truck out that way and that it's not something he usually does. I figured that you must have had some reason. I had to admit that I couldn't figure out what it was. I told him that I could say that it wouldn't happen again and he said thank you and hung up. I couldn't see the house either. He's got some big bush out front. Yeah, he does. There's nothing but bushes and trees out there. Seems like a pretty legit boss. Taking all the right steps to help customers but not presuming the worst in their employees, and when it comes to a logical conclusion they recognize it. I made a girl uncomfortable because I told her one of my friends was killed in a shooting a few days before. It was relevant to the convo. They said they would fire me if I ever made an employee feel uncomfortable again. REI by the way, top 100 places to work my butthole. Not me but my coworker. We had a work potluck for Christmas and everyone would write on a sheet what they were bringing. Dude has the penmanship of a 3-year-old and says he'll bring my wife's dainties, small assorted desserts. Boss read it as my wife's panties and immediately took the guy to HR without even asking what it said. Panties guy is also kind of a spaz and 50 years old, so it was pretty fun seeing it happen. I've only heard the term dainties in relation to little lacy panties and things. Boss called me in, sat me down and gave me a 50-cent raise for giving him my Netflix password. What? I worked at a fast food place as a fry cook, but a slight bit fancier, and during the slow times toward the end of my shift I would sometimes make myself little snacks from the scraps of whatever I had prepped earlier. If we had sliced cheese, it came in huge blocks. I would make cheese sticks for a few people, maybe some potato skins. Things of the sort. At one point I was in the middle of making one of these things when our manager came around to check the temperature on everything and he noticed. After he was done he called me into his office. Now, he was the definition of a chill, but usually pretty to the rules kinda guy. He was literally a pro skater before working at this place, and I was kinda worried walking into his office, as he had caught me taking a few fries for myself before. I walked in. He looked at me and just said, hey, before you clock out can you make me some chicken nuggets, and I'll be damned if I didn't throw together some flour and spices and crap and make the best chicken nuggets I've ever seen. Their mother came in to talk yell about her son's performance. My boss called me in because he was scared of her. Player 2 had joined the game. He had a couple tabs open and asked me which clutch would go better in his mini. The weird part was that I was new there, I drove an automatic at the time, and there was a fantastic mechanic who knows basically everything about cars on staff. Being totally honest, I thought of a clutch handbag before the car part. During allergy season I had a cough and was clearing my throat a lot. There was complaints I was too loud and having allergies on purpose. Some people have too much free time. Not boss, but the principal. I got called down once in middle school. Nobody told me I was in trouble until I got there. I was expecting an academic award. He said 2 other students had made a very serious allegation against me and wanted my side of the story, but he wouldn't tell me what I was accused of. So I just sat there saying variations of I don't know. I've barely even talked to these people. Why am I here? And then he sent me back to class with a lollipop. That was the last I ever heard of it. That was them trying to find out who did something. The guilty talk. There's a guy in the company who I guess is known for being real prickly with people who unexpectedly contacted me about something. Somehow a higher up found out and called me to make sure he wasn't mean to me. We had a copyright violation filed against our IP address for illegally sharing the Devo song Whip It. All I can figure was that it was someone's ringtone. Whip it good. I think I have a good one. I was called into my boss's office because I wasn't wearing my suit jacket in an emergency department, when the employee handbook specifically gives the emergency department employees permission to put jackets on seat backs when we are hot. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.